Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it, maybe realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today we continue our discussion of the poison-destroying Peacock mind training, which is composed by Dharma. We are currently studying the 4th chapter. The main focus of the 4th chapter is, as we will discuss in detail, is greatly dispelling demonic activities and briefly explaining the propagation of Dharma. These are the two main aspects. Among them, the detailed dispelling of demonic actions is divided into 4 parts. Today, we are discussing the protection of the true Dharma. True Dharma protection has 3 aspects: abandoning the Hinayana and protecting the Dharma, willing to fall to protect the true Dharma, and 3 aspects of inverted Dharma protection. The first section has already been covered in the previous lesson. Now we are on the second topic, being willing to fall oneself in order to protect the true Dharma. Yesterday, there was also a verse, which was not recited previously, so today I will recite it for you.
소설 타라 파르족 라닌 간줄 침본 로쿠페 스탄바시고 잡고 맞주르 담뇨 잡고 파르 잡샤인.
The verse we are discussing today is actually somewhat similar to the previous one in a way. You may fear that if you put aside your monastic vows, you may be born into an extremely wretched state of existence. However, anyone who does not destroy the demonic enemies of religion, those who are demolishing the teaching, is breaking their vows. The demonic enemies of religion must be utterly destroyed. Previously, we discussed that when Buddhism is under threat, one should in fact rather give up one's individual liberation vows in order to protect the true Buddhism Dharma. This is basically just the same principle here. The information itself hasn't changed at all. It's just that the way certain points are emphasized. In other words, what this means is that if some people are afraid of breaking Hinayana individual liberation precepts, for example, such as telling lies, killing, and other similar actions, and so on, fearing breaking the 4 root precepts. If they break the 4 root precepts, they worry about falling into the great evil destinies, hell, hungry ghost, or animal realms. So even if traditional Buddhism is currently facing total, complete destruction, they still refuse to subdue those enemies and demonic beings, though they have the ability, but do not actually put any action to subdue them, in this case, from the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, in particular as it is understood. This is not right and correct. So when subduing oath-breaking enemies and demons, these oath-breaking enemies and demons refer to those who destroy Buddhism. They are also oath breakers as well as enemies and demonic beings. They are the ones who, without hesitation, should be properly subdued and eliminated. In other words, what is being said here is that anyone who does their utmost to protect the Dharma, when we uphold Hinayana precepts, it is important to guard them like our eyes. However, once the Dharma is truly, in reality, being destroyed by anyone, if you kill those who are destroying it, or if you subdue them, provided you have the ability, then you should not worry about or fear breaking the precepts, and just simply stand by and just doing nothing, or only look out for your own safety and remain a bystander, never really stepping up and to truly protect the true Dharma, that would be absolutely extremely unreasonable. Therefore, this treatise mainly approaches on the following points from the perspective of protecting Mahayana Buddhism. Rather give up one's life, or even to give up one's own precept, we must protect and preserve the Dharma for future generations. We have studied the great compassionate merchant leader who at that time was afraid that many bodhisattvas would be killed. And if that happened, that person would be truly pitiful. If so many bodhisattvas were killed, it would also cause tremendous harm to the Dharma. So he gave rise to the Mahayana mind, willing to fall into downfall himself, but unwilling to see the decline of the Dharma at all, or to see these bodhisattvas lose their precious lives. Therefore, at that time, he made up his mind with determination, and without hesitation, he resolved to kill the short spear black man. Yes, the great compassionate merchant leader I mentioned, at that time also killed the short spear merchant. This is also a very important matter if you clearly have this kind of ability. As I mentioned to you yesterday, regarding the subduing of Langdharma, specifically in particular, it was Halong Palge Dorje, who should be one of the 5 great disciples in Guru Rinpoche's lineage. He himself was a Buddhist monk, but after he killed the king, he became very worried and then faced various difficulties because he killed the king. He was very afraid. And then he went to the area of Qinghai, which is located in Jainja now, where he began to truly repent with deep sincerity and practice diligently. Now, there is even a special 10,000 Buddha stupa there. Actually, this 10,000 Buddha stupa and the arrow used to kill the king was placed at the entrance of his cave, and he practiced diligently. Later, people regarded this arrow as an ancient sacred relic and built many stupas around the 10,000 Buddha stupas. Now, it seems to have also become a tourist attraction. It has become like that. During that period, at that particular moment in his life, he was engaged in the act of repenting. There were people preparing for ordination. When they were ordaining, they wanted him to join the group of preceptors meeting acharyas. He said, I have killed someone, I simply cannot participate. At that time, in the Kham region and Tibetan area, the monastic lineage and precepts had basically already been cut off and no longer existed. Only Lachen Gönpa Ralse, he brought 2 people to prepare for the transmission, but there weren't enough people, so they invited Lalung Palgi Dorje. When he went, he did not accept. He said, I have already really killed someone, I cannot participate. I can personally recommend 2 remarkable Chinese monks to participate this transmission. After they were added to the group, completing the necessary steps, the items became part of the collection and the transmission of precepts began from there. So in the Vinaya lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, specifically speaking, there is a traditional upper transmission lineage and a traditional lower transmission lineage today. The upper lineage comes down from Ali, from Tibet in the West, from the earlier propagation period, passed down by masters like Shantarakshita. The lower lineage is from the later propagation period, originating from Amdo, which is now the Qinghai region, where the transmission of the Vinaya lineage in Tibetan Buddhism was restored. So as for the person named Halong Palge Dorje, who was just mentioned, on the surface, it seems like a monk killing a king is a terrifying thing. But in reality, at that time, if he hadn't killed the king back then, the consequences at that time would have been even more unimaginable. Therefore, in Vajrayana Buddhism, it is important to note that this is also considered a contribution to history. In fact, not only in Vajrayana and Mahayana traditions, but even in the exoteric schools, for the sake of protecting the Dharma and safeguarding the mind stream of the monastic community, we cannot just simply stand by and do nothing. In the Vinaya, It is just said that once when Shariputra was carefully teaching the Dharma to them, he specifically taught about the cessation of perception and feeling, the meditative absorption where feeling and perception cease. We note that if one attains this state, one can only gain Brahma or celestials, but cannot attain our hardship. Among them, there was one person specifically named Udayi. This bhikshu felt that Shariputra's explanation was unreasonable. He believed one would become an arhat. Then he continually argued in the Sangha, constantly arguing with him and repeatedly criticizing him for various things. But later, no matter what Shariputra said, he simply wouldn't listen at all. Then Shariputra fell silent and stopped speaking. Later, on one occasion, he told Shakyamuni Buddha about this matter. Then once when Shakyamuni Buddha was among the assembly, he said nothing to Shariputra, nor did he say anything to that bhikshu, but just spoke to Ananda, because Ananda was foremost in learning and retention. He said regarding the debate between Shariputra and that bhikshu, during their argument, you clearly knew that Nirodha Samapatti alone does not lead to arhatship, but why didn't you protect him? You just stood by and ignored them. This is unreasonable. If this continues, the spread of ignorant heretical views will continue, and this is not acceptable. At that time, the Buddha, on the surface, seemed to be reproaching Ananda, but in reality, he was addressing all the bhikshus who were present. It should be said that when we Buddhists encounter debates, or when truth and untruth are in direct opposition or conflict with each other, we should stand with truth and uphold the true Dharma. This is very important. Otherwise, like that bhikshu mentioned, if one keeps spreading such irrational views, continuing to spread them, then the true Dharma will surely perish. Therefore, in matters related to this, it is important to note and carefully consider within the Dharma. We should understand that in both the Mahayana Vajrayana and Mahayana Sutrayana traditions, anything that is detrimental to the Buddha Dharma should be gently subdued in a calm and controlled manner. That is why in Tibetan Buddhism, there is the practice of subjugation, relying on mantras to subdue. This is actually a really very important practice. So for us Dharma friends, we often encounter people with different views, and we make sure to question them or inquire with them directly so that we can have a better understanding. During this process, some of them are also understandably quite worried that certain Vajrayana practices in Tibetan Buddhism might curse them. I once heard of a Dharma friend who, when being questioned, said, "I will use mantras to curse your entire family to death." After that, the person became very frightened and stopped questioning further. There are also some other people who I have encountered as well. For example, back when we were demolishing houses, there were some matters, and someone said to me, because this must be carried out, but don't recite those mantras. I've heard you have powerful mantras. If that's the case, then perhaps we should consider things would be really, really bad for me. So deep down, he truly believed in it. Indeed, nowadays there are some people, whether we look at the mantra power of ancient Tibetan lamas, or in some traditional old martial arts novels, or in some particular movies, there are also some ideas about this, as you might expect. But in reality, if someone really utilizes mantras to stop others for any reason, it can actually lead to the destruction of the other person's family, including the group of people involved at the time, who later all ultimately suffered varying degrees of harm. This is also something that, in all honesty, we really do have to admit. Of course, if some people think this is nonsense or heresy, that's perfectly fine as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But regardless, there are many mysterious things that we can't see with the naked eye that are beyond comprehension. So it's probably very best to be especially cautious yourself. Next, let's talk about whether it's possible to subdue every person who harms you. Can you really subdue all of them? This is the main point here. Now, the third question below, as it is presented here, is expected to be about the inverted protection of the Dharma, the third question in the outline.
Nyumu leki depa khtamgja tandang samchen shila masim bar rangla no per shipi jawo la chuni ngji parur jorwa te tsatum charlam mancharam sari che.
This part consists of 5 lines, which are different in style from the previous ones. But actually, these 5 lines also convey a complete and fully clear meaning. Ignorant people, driven by their afflictions and actions and without any regard for the teaching of living beings, will, out of anger, utterly destroy with magic spells the enemy who has injured them. To ask whether or not such people have broken their vows is ridiculous. Whether they truly uphold the precepts is questionable. Here it talks about beings bound by afflictions like greed, anger, and ignorance, and karma from the 10 non-virtuous actions. These ignorant beings are bound by such forces. They do not care at all about the flourishing of the Buddha's teachings or about sentient beings. Whether the Dharma can thrive in this world, whether beings can find happiness, for such aspects, these ignorant beings simply do not consider it, nor do they think about it at all. They only focus on enemies who bear grudges and harm them, or perhaps some demons and evil spirits. Regarding these particular entities, they develop intense hatred and anger toward them. Then recite mantras and perform punitive rituals. Such behavior, in fact, is actually quite unreasonable. If this person, whether a lay practitioner or a monastic, truly and genuinely possesses the precepts in their mind stream, these individual liberation vows, can they even exist on such malicious intent? When it comes to the Mahayana Bodhisattva vows, there is in fact even greater doubt and uncertainty. It is a big question mark, uncertain whether Bodhisattva vows remain in their mind stream. Therefore, in this passage, the main point is to explain that when we face enemies with grudges or people we dislike, we must never perform punitive rituals on these people. If monastics do subjugation practices, then you might even break your precepts. Even if you are a layperson, after taking refuge in the 3 jewels, we should not harm beings. You obviously have a bad relationship with someone and you start to harm them, then such behavior is truly frightening. So in our world, as we can clearly observe, it is indeed the case that some people may view Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism as nothing more than a useful tool for subduing enemies. If you see it this way, then you have misunderstood the true teachings of Vajrayana. Not to mention Vajrayana, for example, in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it is also stated that if we see sentient beings falling into the Avishi hell, we should rather fall ourselves honestly and not wish for them to fall into hell. If we have this attitude, then our own wisdom will increase and we will not fall. So, in general, in Mahayana Buddhism, when we see sentient beings in decline or the Dharma in decline, when we see sentient beings suffering, we are unwilling to accept such a reality. We must do everything we can in every possible way to help these sentient beings be completely liberated from the suffering and pain and entirely free. Therefore, each of us, perhaps during our own practice, including people around us, may, for no reason, frame you or threaten you or even attempt to harm you. At such times, if you can truly and genuinely, calmly subdue your mind, it's not necessarily practicing this subjugation method. I've heard that in the past, including some lay practitioners, when they had bad relationships with certain people, they recite those people's names and chant like the Vajrakilaya mantra, the Mahakala mantra, the Guru Rinpoche mantra, and the wrathful Guru Rinpoche mantra. Actually, this is very unreasonable. If we are sincerely doing it for the sake of the Dharma, truly for the Dharma, then practicing subjugation methods is acceptable. But if it's for ourselves, especially with the intention of harming others, using mantras or trying to harm or kill others, there are very serious faults in doing so. Therefore, whenever we practice subjugation methods, we must uphold them with the view of emptiness and a mind of compassion. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's said that some people who practiced Mahakala or Vajrakilaya ended up becoming like demons themselves. Why is that? Because they did not uphold the practice with the view of emptiness regarding the enemy as something truly existent and seeing yourself as real in this way. This practice lacks the Mahayana Buddhist view of emptiness. At the same time, you lack compassion. Compassion is the essential foundation of bodhicitta. If you do not have bodhicitta and you see sentient beings as inherently existent, then in fact it is simply impossible to achieve realization. That is why it is said that the basics of Mahayana Buddhism, the most fundamental teachings, such as the view of emptiness and compassion. This is why if you don't have qualities, then no matter how great your power is, it is meaningless. I think I've mentioned this before. A person in Tibet who practiced wrathful methods very powerfully. Later, he received offerings from many people. Then he went to a village to continue his practice for a while. At that time, some people saw that he had an impressive amount of wealth indeed, and for the sake of money, they burned down his house and killed him at the same time. When he was killed, he gave rise to intense hatred. He made a terrible, malicious oath and turned into a demon. He then harmed countless sentient beings and harmed many people locally. Later, a practitioner from elsewhere in Tibet who also practiced wrathful deities, an accomplished person, came there to practice. At that time, that fierce, powerful spirit began to immediately attack him when hurting the yogi practitioner, who also possessed some mantra power. The fierce spirit and the yogi started to compete with each other, dueling and testing their martial skills and mantra power. Now, the fierce spirit transformed into an especially terrifying and wrathful being, a particularly tall and mighty wrathful deity. Then one of his feet was gently and deliberately placed on the very peak of one mountain, and the other foot was set on the mountain peak. Now, the yogi himself, when he transformed into a wrathful deity, his body was not as tall as the other. He could only reach with his head up to the navel of the fierce spirit's wrathful form. At that moment, he initially felt, I probably just won't be able to defeat him today. Soon he remembered to generate a truly great compassion for this wrathful spirit. He thought, what has our practice ultimately turned into? What use is there but to harm beings? This being is pitiable. He gave rise to compassion for him. As he generated compassion, he began to shed tears. Because of this, the fierce spirit collapsed to the ground and was later liberated. There are often such accounts, actually. So whether it's true or not in reality, indeed, in some accounts, it is described this way. But regardless, in the process of spiritual practice, everyone should frequently remind themselves that in your practice, sometimes people harm you, sometimes non-human beings try to harm you, and sometimes there may be others try to harm you as well, including certain spirits and so on who try to harm you. If I were a genuine Mahayana Vajrayana practitioner, then I must find a way to save and liberate them. This is very important. Do not act in anger or hatred, brandishing a Vajra dagger menacingly, then pointing it at them, chanting hum hum fa fa. This is just like what is said in the preliminary practices. Fighting and killing 100 times is not as beneficial as inviting them to eat. Inviting them to enjoy offerings brings much greater benefit. So for those who practice Mahayana Buddhism, we should keep in mind that we practice Mahayana Buddhism not to harm all sentient beings, nor is it about killing sentient beings. We should find ways to benefit sentient beings. At the same time, we uphold Buddhism. To uphold Buddhism for every Mahayana practitioner is very important. In the past, we have consistently guided everyone on upholding the true Dharma. What merit does upholding the true Dharma bring? These principles and teachings, I believe I have explained to everyone many times before. Therefore, we should always keep in mind that in our entire lifetime, if we have the ability, we should protect and support the true Dharma. If we do not have the ability, at the least we should not undermine the Buddha Dharma, right? Whether it's the image of the Buddhism or the extremely experienced monastics and strictly traditional lay practitioners of the Buddhism, we should do our best to support them. And in supporting them, on one hand, it means wholeheartedly helping them. And on the other hand, it means trying not to speak of their faults. Within our Buddhist community, in fact, there are some people who are often involved in gossip and disputes. Among Buddhists, there are some who are truly remarkable. They have attained realization and keep pure precepts. And they possess a variety of different kinds of merit. But there are also a few who cannot make it in the secular world and then start pretending to be part of the Buddhist community, wearing robes or holding a Buddhist refuge certificate. And just to survive, they linger within the Buddhist community and refuse to leave. This phenomenon exists no matter what. As Buddhists, we should maintain harmony within our community, with each other that we should know, and fellow practitioners should be harmonious. Teachers should be harmonious with their peers, and different schools should be in harmony with one another. Actually, it's nothing much. The inclusiveness advocated by Buddhism, if we ourselves live in a particularly narrow and extremely confined space, then we are just trapping ourselves in a cocoon, which is unnecessary. The spirit of Buddhism is so vast, so deep, so profound, and truly immeasurable, and the altruistic actions in Buddhism are just as boundless. We must help all sentient beings everywhere endlessly. How much more so our own fellow beings within the Buddhist community? If we are still at odds with each other, that would be truly ridiculous. Such behavior with Buddhist teachings runs completely counter to Buddhist teachings, going the opposite way. Both oneself and others should really find such actions laughable. Therefore, as a true devoted Mahayana Buddhist practitioner in the world, there are all kinds of conflicts, arguments, and disputes between oneself and others in this world, in the eyes of a truly genuine Mahayana Buddhist, should be considered, for the most part, insignificant. One could say there's nothing worth discussing. Among Buddhists, there are many differences. Some practice very well, while others do not. There are all kinds of situations. No matter what, I believe many people, if they rely on the spirit of Buddhism to learn, should really be able, in this very complex world, to find peace within their own hearts. We're not even talking about the higher states of great enlightenment or realizing the very nature of emptiness itself. Let's put aside such profound states for now. Whether it's living life or just getting by, when facing suffering, it should be of significantly great help. This is its value. Why is it that so many people now draw nourishment from the Buddhist wisdom nectar, draw this kind of nourishment, and then are able to live happily themselves? True Mahayana practitioners, no matter where they are, anywhere between heaven and earth in the world, he should be able to face it quite easily, really. All the hardships and difficulties they encounter. If our Buddhist practice is not very good, if lack extensive learning of the Dharma, maybe I am just becoming more and more lock ourselves in a very particularly narrow prison and never be able to truly free ourselves. This kind of phenomenon is actually really quite common, but I really want to be able to see or perhaps observe that how I actually practice. We should first understand these teachings. The great masters of the past, like this author was such an early writer, yet his thinking compared with the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism today are a perfect match, actually. In Tibetan Buddhism, the ideas of great masters like Mipham Rinpoche or Longchenpa, the thoughts of these monks and masters, and the thinking of Dharmarakshita from back then, at that particular time, regarding spreading the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings, they are completely unified and of one essence. This should be abundantly clear to everyone without any doubt from the texts. Next is a brief essential discussion on spreading the Dharma, divided into three aspects. What should and should not be done, the rigor of conduct, and the difference between wise and foolish, these aspects. What should and should not be done, the rigor of conduct, difference between wise and foolish. Three aspects. Firstly, the first point.
Gāngyāng gyāra nāmjīn chērvāyī, rāngdōn lānar nāmbā gānmā tēn, chokchī gyāra nāmjī ngār gyāra nā, jirtar gyāra lā tērtar, dribir zhigī.
First, what should and should not be done? Do not engage in any self-interested action that the victors have scorned. Come what may, it is proper to carry out whatever has been praised by the victors of the 10 directions. If something is condemned by all the Buddhas and Tathagatas of the 10 directions, if it is criticized, if it is denounced, what is it that is denounced? It is the mind of selfishness. This is something we really should not practice. And this is also criticized by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and denounced by Vajra masters. Those who are extremely selfish, even their own friends and family members, find them intolerable. Then the Tathagatas of the 10 directions, in every direction, above and below, what is it exactly that all Tathagatas praise? It is the altruistic mind. No matter what, this altruistic mind, we must consistently and faithfully uphold and practice. So what should be practiced here, it is the altruistic mind. What should not be practiced is the selfish and self-interested mind and selfish behavior. There should be a significant difference between these two. When the Buddhas come to this world, it is actually to turn the wheel of Dharma. We have previously discussed the Lotus Sutra, haven't we? The Holy Lord, World-Honored One, comes for the sake of the Dharma. All the holy ones and all the world-honored ones indeed come here for the sake of the Dharma. Why don't people strive for Dharma? Why do people not truly and earnestly study and practice the Dharma? When the Buddha comes to this world, it is not for any other reason at all. What is his main purpose in coming? It is to propagate the true Dharma. And what does it mean to propagate the true Dharma? What the Buddha delights in and what ordinary people do not exactly rejoice in. What the Buddha wants is benefiting sentient beings. We should follow Shantideva's path, as mentioned in the way of the Bodhisattva. When sentient beings are happy, the Buddha rejoices. When sentient beings suffer, the Buddha feels sorrow. If sentient beings are happy, the Buddha is joyful. If sentient beings are unhappy and in pain in their lives, the Buddha is not pleased either. Therefore, the most praised deed by the Buddhas of the 10 directions is benefiting sentient beings. And the least praised deed is having a selfish mind and harming others. Therefore, in this world, those with altruistic hearts, no matter what level of society they're in, regardless of their background or status, are always immediately recognized and constantly praised by society. If they are selfish and self-centered, and especially disregards the genuine feelings of others, killing and harming others, this kind of people, such people's future will most certainly be bleak. In the world, though they may not have generated bodhicitta, some are indeed those who have even truly sacrificed their own lives for the benefit of others. Formerly on the Thames River, there was once a devastating shipwreck accident. When the accident occurred and the rescue team arrived at the scene, there was a banker who kept bravely saving the people around him. There is a rescue worker's rope, and whenever the rescuers tossed him the safety rope, every time he received the rope, he didn't grab it for himself, but kept passing to others. In this way, he saved 8 people in a row. But in the end, he was exhausted and fell into the river, losing his life. So in our world, sometimes there are moving stories like this. Some people may primarily act out of strong professional duty, but sometimes when we witness their altruism firsthand, even for those of us who have studied Mahayana Buddhism, it's hard to say whether we could do the same. It's difficult to say. So the people around us, whether it's where you live, your meals, your actions, everyone try to reduce selfishness, self-interest. Especially for many of us who go out to work, go out, spread Dharma or practice. At these times, we meet many people. When we meet many people, in fact, this is an opportunity. Meeting sentient beings is an opportunity. But some people, especially those living in secluded mountains, in a quiet monastery, where originally everyone had their own room, everyone had a small space. Now, when they encounter others, they start to fuss over every little thing, whether it's simply about where they live and sitting arrangements or food. Even the smallest matters can make them unhappy and so on. Actually, from the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, this is a very laughable thing. Mahayana Buddhism's main purpose is helping sentient beings. This is very important. Besides this, one's own life, one's own belongings, these things to them are not worth paying attention to at all. But some practitioners, others can't really know their true nature. They might think this person seems fine. Whether giving teachings and lectures or socializing daily with others, they seem to do quite well. When certain situations arise, or when living together with others, that is when you can truly observe their inner state. Time reveals heart, distance tests strength. It's after getting to know them that you realize, oh, this person on the surface seems fine, and what they say also sounds very good. But in reality, when interacting with others, it turns out that surprisingly, there are actually quite a lot of ugly, messy, disorganized, and selfish behavior, the kind that disrupt harmony. Apart from this, there's nothing acceptable. So why do we say that all Buddhas are also good? Great monks and masters, they all praise those who have a mind of benefiting others. In our daily lives, if there are 10 people together, and one of them is especially helpful to others and accommodating to them without any selfish or self-serving motives, such person's excellent and maintains good relationships with others. Some people on the surface may seem quite nice, but whether it's in their work or in their communications and interactions with others, for example, others are never satisfied with them. What is the reason for this? It's because of themselves, their strong self-attachment. Because self-attachment is strong, the ego works. So their words and their actions in reality are actually not truly in accordance with the Dharma at all. Therefore, when we are in a Dharma center or within a group setting, it's not obvious who truly has bodhicitta in their mind stream. After interacting with someone for a while or living together in the same household, the people around can clearly see, wow, so this is what this person is really like. It will happen. So each one of us should also take a moment to reflect on this. We cannot claim we benefit countless sentient beings or claim to have done something especially great. We don't dare to say that. But at least for the people we come into contact with, we should try our best to help them and do our best not to harm them. If we have certain abilities, no matter what our particular strengths are, each of us has them. If we dedicate them to others, in fact, in Mahayana Buddhism, this is a very important practice. So-called practice does not necessarily mean we have to do the 7-point posture of Vairochana or sit with eyes closed. It doesn't have to be that way. And in our everyday lives, your actions and conduct can also, in your daily life, genuinely embody altruism. Next, the following important point is, let me briefly mention, and this one should be the above, was third aspect. And now At this moment comes what we call rigor of conduct.
Kimberum zochi ulodang damba nam laglin tamchi tongta tagni sha, laglin tamchi tongta tagni sha, tongta tagni sha, chudang garwa chukdang duni dolar pang, chila magnut rangla jipan sha.
People of intelligence know that all practices should be performed punctiliously. Whatever is opposed to the teaching should be rejected, even at the risk of your life. Injure no one and benefit yourself. A wise person should understand exactly that all of one's actions, from beginning to end, should be carried out reasonably and per the Dharma. If something goes against the Dharma in any way, then even if it means giving up your life, you should abandon such unwholesome actions. If through your external actions you do not harm others, then naturally you are benefiting yourself. As long as we simply do not harm others, we will benefit ourselves. But if we are harming others, we are indirectly harming ourselves. Therefore, here, a person with wisdom should try their best not to go against the Dharma in anything they do, especially when it comes to harming sentient beings or undermining the Dharma. This is something that should absolutely never, under any circumstances, be done in one's lifetime. Otherwise, one will never truly be able to completely purify or cleanse such deeply negative karma, no matter what efforts are made. In the Maharatna Kutta Sutra, it is also said, I'd rather sacrifice life than slander Dharma, rather die than slander nobles, rather die than befriend evil. I'd rather sacrifice life than break pure precepts. It teaches that we would rather give up our lives, but we must not slander the true Dharma or the noble ones. We would rather give up our bodies and lives than associate with evil friends or violate the Buddha's pure, sacred, and inviolable precepts. So we should not transgress in the slightest. For us, ordinary people, this is indeed quite difficult. But no matter what, the main thing is really not to destroy the Dharma. Nowadays, there are some people once ordained or who previously studied Buddhism, but in the end they became possessed by demons, or maybe their own negative karma manifested, and to some extent they end up harming the Dharma. This kind of thing often happens even among Buddhists. There was a person who said that from a young age, he grew up in a Buddhist family where the Dharma flourished. But after he grew up, he increasingly felt the conduct within Buddhism was not in accordance with the Dharma. Then he started to slander Buddhism on a large scale through the internet. So at this time right now, in this degenerate age, these sentient beings do not care whether you are reasonable or not. As long as you are really good at talking nonsense, then many people will believe him as well. In this way, his followers keep increasing. He thinks what he says is really very reasonable. But some sentient beings truly, in this internet age, are really quite pitiable. The power to create negative karma is also extremely strong. If some sentient beings have the ability, the power to create virtuous karma can also be very strong. But no matter what, when we read the biographies of great masters, they would rather give up their own lives, but would never destroy the Dharma, nor harm sentient beings. This was the most important and solemn vow of their entire lives. Even when their lives were slowly coming to an end, they would never completely abandon such a great important vow because it represents their most fundamental core beliefs. Back in around the 12th century, historically speaking, the ancient Nalanda monastery in India was destroyed by other religions. At that time, those panditas and tens of thousands of scholars at Nalanda monastery were forced to either abandon the Dharma and slander the three jewels. If they did so, they would be allowed to leave through the north gate. But if they were unwilling to abandon it, then they would have to leave through the west gate, all leaving west gate killed. As a result, among those panditas and scholars, many chose to leave via the west gate. In the end, rivers of blood flowed everywhere. Ultimately, in history, as we know, there was a solemn and moving scene worthy of song and tears. This is something we should all know about in our history, including what I heard and even witnessed myself when I was young. Many people who, before their teachers and the Three Jewels, took the Mahayana bodhicitta vow and took refuge in the Buddha. Some practitioners, and even when they were criticized, tortured, or harmed in any way, the deep vows in their hearts, they never really gave up completely. One thing is that they did not want to damage the Dharma. In their lifetime, some of them said, I would rather give up my brief life, but I am unwilling to slander the Dharma in front of others. Such a very firm vow. But as for some of us, I don't know if we have such unwavering resolve. In studying Buddhism, on one hand, one's actions and outward appearance are important. But what is even more important is this inner unwavering conviction. When studying texts like the Beacon of Certainty, it always emphasizes your inner state of mind. It's not because your outward actions appear to be in accordance with the Dharma, nor is it because of your appearance, or that what you say on the surface honestly sounds so reasonable. Not like that. For every practitioner, fundamentally, within their own inner state, deeply, there is a particularly steadfast wisdom, an unwavering faith, an unwavering vow. This may be the most important thing of all, something to remember. Next, let's talk about the difference between the wise and the foolish, the third outline. While fools do not come to understand things even by degrees, they are clear and vivid to the wise. This is exactly what the truly courageous individual should always practice with great dedication. Part 4 of the elixir made from poison. The foolish, for a very long time, even after many years have gradually passed, still have not realized it. With the foolish, if you tell them 100 times, they might not understand the most basic principle, but the wise, after hearing it once or twice, already know it like the back of their hand. They completely understand it. We often encounter situations like this. Many practitioners, even though they have dedicated a significant amount of time indeed for many years in the monastery and relied on teachers and have studied many scriptures and treatises, but in their hearts, deep down inside, their learning is not solid. At the slightest external disturbance, a little wind or grass moving, they immediately follow along with whatever is happening in reality. They simply echo what others say without any opinions of their own. Without any firm understanding, they change right away. Sometimes we can see this as well. When something happens, someone who usually seems quite good indeed and quite promising actually, but in fact they are actually not solid at all. Especially with Fool 7 after all these many years. And after studying so many treatises, they still have not grasped the most fundamental principles. This phenomenon exists. But as for some wise people, they haven't been around very long, nor have they studied many scriptures. Relying on spiritual teachers, they haven't had that many either. Compared to others, yet in a very short time, they immediately have a thorough understanding and grasp all the details. Just like Khenpo Sodargye's teacher also told him, you're different from others, your habitual tendencies from past lives, whether it's practicing the generation stage or deity yoga, these are very easy for you to understand. He immediately sensed it and immediately would attain the most profound and secret meaning of the Dharma. Of course, as you might expect, there are all kinds of differences among people. If all people were the same, kings and servants would all be the same since they're all people. But that's impossible. There are always distinctions. Among practitioners, there are also all kinds of different mindsets that people can have. So in the process of learning, as we gradually acquire much new knowledge, having wisdom is very important. But this wisdom doesn't just come to you the moment you think about it. Sometimes if you pray to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or to the Dharma protectors, and at the same time diligently apply yourself, you should also be able to open the door to the profound, timeless wisdom of the Dharma.
If you don't do this, no matter how many years you spend, sometimes you still won't understand. When we interact with others in daily life, we can also see this clearly. Some have been ordained for many years, but still don't grasp the basics of monastic life. They don't even grasp the simplest concepts. Many studied years, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they already started to learn. But now, when it comes to basic, simple principles, we're not even talking about the especially profound meanings of the sutras and treatises. They still don't understand even the most basic and simple rules of conduct. This kind of phenomenon is very common in society. So regardless, for those who are ignorant, it is significantly more difficult for them to gain any real insight as a result. But for the wise, they understand quickly. So with just a little guidance, they immediately grasp the meaning to them. Below is the final meaning, the ultimate essence of this chapter. This is what the devoted spiritual warrior diligently practices and upholds. This is the path, the sacred journey, and the Dharma that guides the warrior's practice. It is the very essence of transforming poison in the 4th chapter. The profound pith instructions for transforming into the path in the 4th section. Next, we'll discuss the 5th chapter. The 5th chapter is also divided in the same precise manner. For the 5th section, the title I have given it is the chapter on destroying self-attachment. It is divided into initial meaning, true meaning, and conclusion meaning. 3 distinct aspects. First, the initial meaning, the peacocks roaming through the jungle of virulent poison. Homage to the supreme conqueror of Yama. In this teaching, each part demonstrates the peacock neutralizing poison. As for the peacock, it strolls leisurely in the poisonous forest. These poisons do not cause it any harm at all. In fact, its feathers and its health even gain unique benefits from them. This is the unique quality of the peacock. Similarly, we Mahayana practitioners facing adverse conditions, suffering, and training in the poisonous forest of obstacles, while ordinary people may be overwhelmed by these difficulties to the point where they can no longer stand up, unable to withstand such attacks. But Mahayana bodhisattvas who have generated bodhicitta, even as the degenerate age deepens and adverse conditions intensify, at such times their practicey view, the meditation and the fruition, not only does not suffer any harm, but actually makes even greater progress overall. That is why at the beginning of each section of this chapter, there is such a statement. Now, as for this, as the author of this sutra, he pays homage to his Yidam deity of all lifetimes, which is the wrathful Yidam, Yamantaka, a wrathful manifestation of enlightened energy in Tibetan Buddhism. He pays homage to Yamantaka, the wrathful Yidam. The true meaning is divided into preliminary, main, and concluding practice. Sometimes I say true meaning, sometimes chapter meaning. Later on, we can standardize the terminology as actually needed. This is divided into preparatory, main, and concluding practices. The preparatory practices are further divided into 3 aspects: inviting distinguished guests from both the worldly, physical, and transcendental spiritual realms, requesting them to carefully and solemnly listen to the spoken words of the oath, asking them to listen to the vows being made, the language of making vows, the oath words, and third, recounting past causes and conditions, divided into 3 aspects. Just now, the first was inviting guests from both worldly and transcendental realms, then asking them to listen to the words of oath, and recounting past causes and conditions in 3 aspects. The first step is carefully invoking the mysterious and powerful black magic demons, summoning them from the shadows. The first has 3 aspects, of which the first is invoking black magic demons. The second is invoking gods, nagas, and non-human beings. And the third is invoking the celestial demons and holy assembly. These are the 3 divisions, and among them, the first one Santik naksar mapshaji shar jiptang shinji la shamsarlo ganglap sambangan jar danjik pe nakbu shugn mali zhongdr shug shaza chagntong shewa tongshir nam lijin da ka zhongda terang shug
May all the malicious and hostile hordes of evil ones, wherever they may be, come here to me. May all the trillions of flesh eaters and blood drinkers come here to me, a being of flesh and blood today. Next, this section discusses eliminating self-clinging. Eliminating self-clinging is like practicing severance methods. First, where you transform your own body into nectar as an offering, then invite some distinguished worldly and transcendental guests to perform the ritual of making offerings above and giving below. This appears in preliminary practices of the great perfection and finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind. You should know that when practicing severance methods, this practice brings great merit. Each of us clings to self every day, always trying to protect ourselves. But the more we protect ourselves, the more suffering we experience. A Mahayana Buddhist transforms their 5 aggregates completely into nectar, making offerings above and giving below. Self-clinging is completely severed. Evil spirits and heretical forces can't harm you. On one hand, this is the best method of liberation in our daily practice. The more we cling, the more we suffer. Clinging makes it harder to keep things. But the more we let go, the more causes and conditions come together naturally. So here, the very first step is to carefully invite the demons. As mentioned earlier, this is about inviting the forces of darkness, not the side of virtuous Dharma, but the side of dark Dharma, the way of shadow. Those from the dark side, those forces of darkness, evil spirits linked to dark Dharma. So what are they? They are filled with malice and hatred, and the hosts of dark spirits have come here. Those of you who eat meat and drink blood, countless in number, tens of thousands, hundreds of millions, an enormous multitude, today you have all gathered and come here before me. This is a kind of invitation in a sense, as well as a heartfelt supplication. To supplicate means to summon them quite humbly. Normally we are quite afraid of these things, aren't we? Many of us, because of our attachment to self, worry about demons or ghosts, or whether there might be other beings coming to harm us. We constantly have such anxieties. But at this moment, if they do exist, then let them come. If we think about it this way, then there is nothing to be afraid of. Otherwise, especially if you are timid, you are often very afraid. Even going out after dark can be difficult. When the Institute didn't have electricity at night, when we went to the cow dung shed to fetch fuel, sometimes we would worry about touching a corpse or touching a demon because it was completely dark. At that time, there were no flashlights or lamps at all. Early in the morning, when we went to get cow dung, it was dark, so we had to grope our way. Sometimes when feeling around, we would touch our own torn clothes, and it felt like touching a corpse, which was really scary. Back when I herded yaks, I'd get up early in the morning. Sometimes when I encountered yaks on the mountain, I'd think, is a tiger coming? For as long as I can remember, I have always felt a deep sense of fear within myself, and I was constantly very scared. I once saw a group of tourists. Those tourists were by the river having fun. Everyone was eating and enjoying themselves there. Then a mother cow appeared, thinking about her young calf. She came out from beside them, calling out as she walked. As she appeared, those tourists all got scared and desperately jumped into the nearby river. Fortunately, the river wasn't very big. Actually, there was no need to fear the mother cow. But maybe they had never seen the mother cow before, so everyone was especially frightened. When emotions take over, people react instantly. So if our attachment to self keeps growing, we might experience even more and more suffering. All these demons, you eat my flesh, drink my blood, suck my essence, take my life and wealth. If you want it, just take it. Come if you wish. Sometimes we completely let go. If you want it, take it. If you want to stay, then stay. At this point, it seems the other side doesn't have that much power anymore. This is the first formal invitation inviting them to come to join us. There are 3 aspects: inviting guests. Then the second is to invite celestial beings and non-humans.
칼라 디베 예떡 타이 땅 란청 정부 촉남 중더 쇼저 중더 쇼
May all the troops of gods, serpent deities, harmful spirits, heavenly musicians, titans, snake spirits, the numberless hungry ghosts who roam the sky, and the armies of retributive spirits come here to me. Here it refers to what we usually call devas, dragons, and yakshas, also known as nature spirits, what we call the 8 classes of devas and nagas. The asuras, the garudas, the kinnaras, and the maharagas, who are all legendary beings from ancient mythology, non-gods, music gods, Gandharvas, as well as the great-bellied gods and so on. Whether they are hungry ghosts in this world, belong to Asuras, or powerful celestial beings, and also those from one's own past as well. All kinds of spirits or human-faced ghosts to whom one owed debts in previous lives, all sorts of hungry ghosts and non-gods. You are all invited here. Now, I will use my own body, my own life, my truly most precious possessions, and offer all of these to you as a gift. Whatever you want, just come and take it. Of course, this kind of action is indeed found in Vajrayana Buddhism, releasing self-attachment and realizing prajna emptiness. Only great practitioners can do this. Ordinarily, people might recite the words, but when it actually comes to it, or even in their hearts, they dare not actually invite them to come. Once they do come, they worry, will they really take my life? Will they harm my body? They have these kinds of fears. These fears arise from not realizing emptiness and not having a particularly strong altruistic mind. If we are truly not attached to our own lives and have altruistic compassion, then regarding our body, life, and enjoyments, we simply would not be attached to any of it at all. Cast them aside. You wouldn't be attached even to stones or wood, let alone anything else. So sometimes when we practice certain severance methods or recite verses about giving up our body, speech, and mind, this is very effective. In the renowned smoke offering ritual composed by the esteemed Buddhist master Mipham Rinpoche, there are some important verses at the end. In this way, many problems can actually be resolved. This is how worldly patterns work. The more attached I become, the less I obtain. The more I relax and let go, the things I want will come to me in due time. This is the second step, inviting these beings here. After these beings arrive, I will make vows. After making vows, I will begin to make offerings. The following steps are all like this. Third, respectfully invite the spirits, deities, and holy assembly.
Tester matsang me ping korje la huangbo nye te chang huangbo nye te chungdar kopa la tezum me per dak tamji po lapo che yak tam da per nyun.
May the co-natal deities, the sages, the bringer of obstacles and evils, the 18 great demons, all the protective goddesses and assistant protectors, the triple refuge, and the troops of noble ones assemble in this place. In our world, everyone has guardian deities on their left and right, always accompanying them. Since childhood, on our left and right sides, there are these celestial beings. Our bodies have their own body deities as well, actually. There are also deities on our left and right shoulders. Wherever there are innate deities, they are always with us. The deities I offered to and praised throughout all my past lives. Each person has many. There are many unseen gods around us. There are evil sorcerers, demons, and 18 enchantresses, all kinds of demonic conditions, 18 types of demons. For example, our faculties, objects, and consciousnesses, the 6 faculties, the 6 objects, as well as the 6 consciousnesses, all of these, without exception, have their own demons. When we discuss the Sharangama Sutra, there are 50 types of skanda demons, with each skanda having 10. So if there are 18 realms, there are also demons of the 18 realms. Or, in our world, there are 18 kinds of demons. There are also worldly dakinis and transcendent dakinis. in Lama Munso's life topics discussed quite a lot, similar to these Dakini types. There are worldly and transcendent Dharma protectors, or worldly Dharma protectors and wisdom Dharma protectors. There are indeed many kinds of Dharma protectors. Then the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. If the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are sincerely welcomed, the Buddha and the Noble Assembly each possess the Dharma jewel within themselves. In this manner, each and every one of these deities, without exception, is included and considered together as part of this group. Within our various connections with heavenly demons, ghosts, deities, and protectors, dakinis, all of you have come here. After you have arrived, I am beginning making vows, I am starting. It's like when we thoughtfully organize a large-scale event, we first invite people from all different levels, government departments, entrepreneurs, as well as internet celebrities, stars, and so on, people from all walks of life. In the same way, here, I am going to offer my self-attachment, my body, and invite all of you, everyone in this world, both pure and impure guests come. Normally, we only invite Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Demonic beings are not usually invited. They're the ones we drive away or send off in subjugation rituals. But here, the author's practice is different from that. So it is very close to our Mahayoga, or similar to some of the practices and rituals of the unsurpassed secret mantra. Next, let's talk about another verse. Second, please listen to the words of oath. This means listen and accept the vow.
Tester matsang me ping korje la huangbo nye te chang huangbo nye te chongdar kopa la tezum me per dak tamji po lapo che yak tam da per nyun.
Thus, all who belong to cyclic existence, or who are beyond it, after gathering in front of me as witnesses, should listen without hesitation as I deliver the great discourse that I have vowed to present. As we discussed earlier, some reside in the pure state of nirvana, and these deities, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, while others, like ghosts, spirits, celestial beings, and nagas, dwell within samsara, whether you reside in the transcendental realm or are among all the worldly guests present here today. You've come here as witnesses. You are here as witnesses because in front of all of you, the witnesses, I will make vows and break self-clinging. I will offer my body, and I still have many things to accomplish. So since you have indeed come here today, it is not as if you just have nothing to do. You must serve as my witnesses. What are you witnessing? I'm making vows, generating bodhicitta, and so on. There is much meaning here. You came here, and today, without any doubt, I am making a very firm vow. In my heart, I am making a resolute vow. At the same time, I am declaring this boldly in front of you. This should be my most absolutely genuine expression of my attitude and feelings regarding this situation. I'd say it's my general outlook and feelings. When we listen to this teaching, everyone should think this way. In the end, throughout beginningless samsara, we have wandered continuously, but have never attained liberation. The main reason is self-clinging. Actually, if we simply take ourselves as truly existent, that is self-clinging. If we take external objects as truly existent, that is grasping at phenomena. If we take everything as truly existent, that is samsara. I often think this way. If we can see through all these truths or understand them clearly, that is liberation. So what is truly pitiable about sentient beings? We mistake the impure for the pure, take what is impermanent to be permanent, treat the selfless as having self, and what is unreal to be real, and so on. We have 4 types of deluded perceptions. Every ordinary person has these kinds of delusions. When discussing theory, it seems correct, but in reality, our deeply ingrained habitual patterns from beginningless time keep interfering. So, there is no way to wake up from the dream of confusion. Sentient beings are truly pitiable. So sometimes when we hear these especially profound teachings or encounter especially deep and meaningful Dharma, we cannot say we 100% completely grasp their meaning. But at least the Dharma is like nectar. Even if you just taste a little bit of its flavor, it will bring great benefit to your mind stream, eliminating corresponding faults and obstacles. So awakening happens little by little, and little by little one becomes purified. So here he also says, as for what I say today, all of you worldly guests who have been invited, I'm about to make a vow now, and I want you to bear witness for me. If I fail to keep it in the future, you may punish me. If I succeed, then you should, if you don't mind, offer comfort and give praise to me. That's the idea, especially in this situation. All right, next, in the following lesson, let's see how we ourselves do. So many guests have already checked in. Tomorrow, the proceedings formally begin. It's like when we hold an event on the first day, all of the invited guests, as you may already know, have already checked in. Then, on the second day, the event officially and formally kicks off. And then the exciting moments begin to slowly unfold. All right, now, that's all for today.
Jupun Zonen Droa Bandangara Badna Asadorda Bandangara Badna Asada Bandangara Badna Asadorda